Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Check in every time you get a chance.
Every time.
It's kind of, yeah, hopefully you guys are getting notifications for these. Oh, look at this. 666 yet again. We hit 666 like 4 years ago, and then they rewound us after we talked about certain things that were in the works concerning the plague upon the land, and the cure. And then they just basically put us on the treadmill going nowhere forever. But that's okay, because we are going somewhere, and it's not in their system, that's for sure. EEARTS, when you get a chance, check this out. This is one of our family members who wrote a book, Virtue's Transformation Through Christ, and that's through the christened state, so to speak. And Heart's Home, we're having a temporary human experience. It's important to keep that in mind. Okay, 5 environmental scientists that were the ones that died in the plane crash in Arkansas yesterday. They were en route to the Ohio metal plant explosion, and the plane went down. Okay, so yesterday, a bunch of you guys had said, yeah, the big question is who's on board. Well, now that we know who's on board, now what do you think?
Indeed, I mean, it's something that you can't just turn away from, right?
So they work for CTEH, an environmental consulting company that empowers extraordinary teams of experts to help companies, governments, and communities prepare for, respond to, and recover from threats to their environment and people. CTEH has also been hired by Norfolk Southern to test soil and water in East Palestine. Environmental scientists headed to Ohio for the cleanup, die in plane crash. Oh gosh, everything gets more and more suspicious all the time. I'll have the link so you guys could go and check it out. This is that company. And it shows the projects that they are involved in. So a man found an undetonated blasting cap 1.4 miles from the Ohio derailment. Yes, like many residents who live within a few miles of Norfolk Southern Railroad's February 3rd train derailment, Jerry Corbin evacuated before the railroad decided to conduct a controlled burn of 5 freight cars that contain that toxic vinyl chloride. When he returned to his home in Darlington Township, Pennsylvania, about 1.4 miles from the crash site, he discovered 2 surprises. Black debris that resembled ash was all over his yard and his roof, and an undetonated blasting cap landed in a pasture near his house. Okay. All right. Nothing to see here, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think it's obvious for so many of us. This is a 6.8, by the way. Many people were saying it was over 7, and then, the United States Downgrading Service put it down to 6.8. This is in a very remote area of Tajikistan, so not one that's going to result in a horrific loss of life, thankfully. And, we are keeping eyes open on the earthquake front, also in the skies, obviously. This is Governor Noem from South Dakota. And she said she was kept in the dark about kind of what was going on with the balloon. And the Pentagon, White House did not let me know that my South Dakota National Guard had been activated to potentially respond to the China spy balloon. They did not let me know it was over South Dakota till it had already passed. They keep governors in the dark. Well, it's a need-to-know basis, and the governors, I guess the federal government thinks they don't need to know. And this is a view from above, as you see a military pilot, of the infamous Chinese surveillance balloon. Interesting, is it not, to see this perspective on things from above?
It is. It's pretty curious.
U.S. to expand troop presence in Taiwan for training against China. Yeah, again, it's so obvious that the global leadership is hell-bent on creating that third conflagration. And as we have been saying, right now, you have drills going on in South Africa with China, Russia, and South Africa, which truly is unprecedented. And here we see again, I mean, we've seen Italians in massive food lines for, since the Plague Upon the Land came out. And of course, we have a new governance there, Giorgia Meloni. And obviously, she's been very, very vocal about supporting Zelensky. And, a lot of people back home are like, hey, we thought you were the breath of fresh air. We thought you were going to bring real change. Why is it that you're spending all our money on arming Ukraine? Meanwhile, we're all starving, standing in line. Look at the size of these lines. So this is, again, what we've been saying from the get-go. Anybody that's in the political system, if you're trusting in them, again, how many times do we have to have the rug pulled out from under us, trusting anybody that's in the political system? They're in the political system in a dark age for a reason, to better themselves. That's the truth. That's the truth. You're not going to find any of them. I mean, they could talk a good game, and boy, she could talk. And say all the right things. They know what the things they have to say to get the side that feels out of control and like all hope is starting to be lost. They know what they got to say to them. It's easy enough to just write a script and say it, but you have no intention of doing it.
Well, the whole idea is just to basically be a pacifier when their goal that they know that we don't is going to stay very firm, very solid, and they just have to be the ones that get us to buy the stories. So it is, once again and again and again, it's all about sales at a certain level. And to them, that's all they need to worry about. They're not worried about you.
No, and here we see a load of crap. And this is what we get everywhere. It's just all a load of crap. We got to start recognizing it and calling it for what it is. They could wrap the crap in a new package. They can put it out on a stage. It could give you amazing, emotionally jarring speeches. It's still a load of crap.
Is probably my favorite moment right now. It's true. It's true. You put whatever bow you want on it, put whatever color lipstick on that pig. It doesn't really matter. It's always going to be something that they use to control us.
And right now, obviously there's a big political maneuvering underway, and you have 45 over in East Palestine. That was big headlines, big photo ops. And we can always look back and say, well, it was definitely better than it is now, because it just tends to progressively get worse. And we could look all the way back to the Reagan era, and we could watch how it's progressively, well, I mean, we could go way, way, way back. We don't even have to go with the Reagan era. Obviously we lost so many rights with 9/11 and with the Patriot Act. It's never gone back, and again, PNAC talked all about that before that ever happened. We could go back to the sinking of the Titanic with the bankers, John Astor on there. These bankers were against the Federal Reserve. The Titanic went down. They went down. The Federal Reserve came into being. It goes way, way back, to the Woodrow Wilson regime again. It's just been a progressive. As we go, it's just, humanity and citizens lose more and more rights all the time. And the people's voices get to be more and more insignificant in the reality of the politicians and the fact that they don't work for us. None of them work for us, number one nor number two. And it doesn't matter if it was left or if it was right. They don't work for us. Look at the Earth surrounded by satellites from Starlink. Now here is your guy that was tweeting about that Illuminati group. And there's always these comical things like saying, oh, he's going to get married to AOC and they're going to be number one and number two in the White House. Again, just recognize what they've done. They put somebody in the public eye They put them on TV. They get you to like them. They get you to trust them. You, quote unquote, elect them. They've been selected for you. And it's all a progressive case of more and more for the controllers, less and less for humanity. We're surrounded. Look at this. It is completely surrounded. Oh, yes, technology is encasing us everywhere. And, again, he is all about engaging in a little bit more fun way. He's your comic relief. He's a way for you to deflate a little bit when you're getting irritated and say, well, maybe Elon's going to save us.
Indeed. I mean, it's all about selling you. It's all about getting you to buy into something. And really, I think it's our own faults for having so much cognitive dissonance to think that the system might change. To me, what I see is a bunch of beings that have found a pattern to play on humans, and it works. And as long as we keep following that pattern, they're going to keep using this pattern of information to get us to corner ourselves. We're the only ones who can break that pattern. It has to be us.
This sure looks like a planet that is on a lockdown. This sure looks like a planet that's being controlled by an outside force that's intent on keeping the citizens of this planet on that lockdown and in that lockdown. Again, will humans live to 150? Science is working on it. The only thing science has to do is get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Take science, might as well pile it on that pile of dung, because that's what it's worth. It really is. Everything has an angle to it. Everything is sales in this world. It's all sales. When we look, we might forget that there are people that are still living the way people were living 12,000 years ago on this planet. Maybe much, much more than that. And they, even though they see us and our technology looking down at them from above, and they might look and think, well, these are strange beings. What's up with these beings? And our ancestors might have looked at others coming by in ships and stuff and said, uh-oh, who are these strange beings? These are the gods, the Elohim, the Anunnaki, etc. There still are people living in a tribal society all around the globe. And many in modern civilization might look to them and think, oh, those poor people, they have it so rough. It's funny, these people look pretty happy, don't they? They look kind of happy, don't they? Yeah, I don't think they mind their life. How miserable do people look rushing off because you're going to be 5 minutes late to punch in? Oh yeah, alarm clock wakes you up. I don't think they have an alarm clock. No, their alarm clock is just the natural cycles of the planet. Again, there's choices to be made. There's choices to be made. We could even see it in our modern culture. When we think about people like the Amish, who are living in the world, but they're living outside of the world. I was reading from the Bhagavata Purana last night. And again, you might think that when you read your Bible, you're reading something that's unique. It's word for word. It's word for word. Exactly. And there's a quote there where Krishna is saying, basically telling people, if you really want to live a spiritual life, then do not be of the world, even though you're in the world. And you might think, wow, that came out of the Bible. No, that comes from much older texts, way older texts, thousands of years older, and other traditions too. And so we are admonished to, if you really want to have your freedom, you really want to be a peaceful, true being that's in sync with this earth, we cannot be in this system. It's going to be a choice to be made, and you might want to put one foot in, put one foot out, and try to walk that tightrope. You might jump both feet out, or you might jump both feet in, knowing that you're in effect really truly going to be a slave to the system, and the system's going to tell you everything: what time to wake up, what time to go to sleep, what you're going to eat, and et cetera, when you're going to get your next ouch, even though you're not on the need to know basis of what's in it, even though it's going into you. We could play, we could live simply, we can have kind of all the things that our ancestors had. And this is the choice that we're going to be making now. We've talked about the Hopi prophecy, and it's not the only one. There are many indigenous prophecies that say the same thing. The fact that there's going to arise a return to the old ways, where we live in harmony with the earth, where we get ourselves out of the smart cities. We were connecting again to a couple different groups. Last night we were connecting with, again, the kids in 2055 that are outside of the smart cities. We were connecting to somebody that was in a smart city. And again, what I want you to realize too, which will boggle so many people's minds, is that this system you see being put into play on this planet, that's been mostly a behind the scenes thing. Now they're going to roll it out more and more, so it's not going to be so subtle. It's going to be right in our face. It's going to be a choice. This system is in play on many planets. And yes, of course, there's a lot of other planets out there. Again, every now and then you'll get somebody that is still, their mind is boggled and still think that we're alone here. We're not alone. All these cultures understand that. The ones that have not been indoctrinated in the Western way of thinking all know that we're not alone. Besides other densities. Yes, there are beings on other densities living on our planet. There are beings that might be perceived to be completely invisible to most people, because most people don't have activated pineal glands. They don't have their intuition, fully engaged. They're not able to perceive things of a little bit higher frequency. And there are many that can now. Absolutely. I mean, we know we have so many regulars that are always seeing nature spirits, things you might call fairies, elves, sprites, all these different, elemental type beings, nature beings that were just acknowledged as, of course, they're there by our ancestors and by the people that we're looking at photos of on different continents all around the globe right now that are still living in harmony with the earth. They're able to see more than what the typical person that's in this system can't see, because the system blinds us purposely. So what we get is that, yes, those that choose to live inside the cities, all your decisions are made for you, except for the 1 day a week that you do get off when you're not a slave to the system. But then again, you're only given a limited possibility of things to do on your 1 day off.
This information it's concerning, but I like to pull everything back into the now, because that's how we're all going to get through this. It's like, what do we need to do now? There's so many things coming at me. What do I prioritize? And this is why we always say time and time again, your spiritual practice. That's what you need to get in touch with the higher self, because the higher self knows where to go already. So there's people with expanded energy bodies, and the further you expand out, the more you can feel that energy, and those signals go back to the brain when you are expanded. So that's why they're trying so hard to keep everybody in fear. Otherwise, we're going to get direction, and a lot of us are going to find direction, and they're going to be left with nothing.
And we'll share with you, because we've really been looking and doing the remote viewing and scanning, and when we're coming in contact with these beings, again, they can't tell us everything, but we're looking at different timelines and all. And what we see no evidence of is complete nuclear destruction. There's zero evidence of that. None. It doesn't seem like that ever happens. So that's a good thing. The other thing that there seems to be no evidence of is and we'll say by about the time of 2055 or thereabouts, there hasn't been any sort of crustal displacement that we can see. So you still have buildings standing in New York. You still have buildings standing all around in Texas. It seems that Dallas is being turned into a smart city. We did get that there was going to be at least three, maybe four smart cities in Texas per se. There will be smart cities all around where there's big population centers. Those cities will be much smaller. Again, what we do see is that there's many less people. It's far, far fewer people on the planet than there is now. So the population is much, much less. There are people living in what used to be, let's just say, if you take a city of 100,000, you could now look at it going into the future and you'll see scattered pockets. Okay, there's somebody walking over there. Oh, there's somebody over there. Yeah, there still are people. And not everybody is herded into a smart city, and not everybody is out in the woods. Not everybody is, living tribally. There are people that are still basically kind of trying to go through the motions like we are now in so many ways. So it's good news that we don't see that there's, a crustal displacement event where tsunamis have dwarf the Himalayas, none of that. No, there appears to be, again, buildings up and structures up. It doesn't look like there was a scorched earth WW3. There are buildings crumbling. There are some buildings down. And what Cindy was getting today is, again, the earth is reclaiming so much of the land. There's way less people out there, so, you're going to have, if you have a smart city in New York City, it might be just downtown Manhattan, and that might be the entirety of the smart city, just to give you for instance, where right now people are spread in Brooklyn, the Bronx, all over. It's going to be much smaller areas that people are going to be herded into these smart cities. The technology, too, is such that it feels extremely artificial in there, extremely artificial. I think what you're seeing with them rolling out, like what they're rolling out in Saudi Arabia, is very much like it. Artificial sun, everything artificial. It's almost like being in prison, honestly. It's like, okay, lights out, everybody, lights out. Okay, now it's 6 a.m., everybody up. Yeah, and it's very much also for those of you that saw Cloud Atlas. Do you remember Cloud Atlas? If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a very, very provocative movie. There is a server class in there that are all, feminine, and their whole purpose is to serve their customers. Serve the consumer. You understand how this works. Well, they're given one liquid imbibement a day, and that's kind of what it feels like is in these cities. Again, you're given this slop, and it's going to be, again, from what? Who knows? That's your food. Meanwhile, outside, and you will have people living like the Amish. You will have people even farming in backyards of houses that are right now sitting in little towns of maybe 20,000 people. Maybe there'll be a few hundred people instead of 20,000. And they might have, gravitated into, whatever house suited their fancy, because again, it's more of an emptier world. But it's a world in which people that are outside of the cities, outside of the system, definitely have a lot more freedoms. And the ones inside, unfortunately, the younger ones, they won't know anything different. So for them, this is going to be the norm. And that was part of what was, I think, maybe a bigger realization with what we just got. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, as Cindy's having throat issues right now. But this is kind of what we see. Again, we all have our choices. Listen to your own gut and your own instincts. I know there's people out there, there's channels out there that are entirely dedicated to pole shift, crustal displacement. You got to get to the highest points on Earth. Remote viewing it and doing both trance channeling and partial trance channeling. We're not getting that. And also we're not getting that there was a complete nuclear conflagration. It certainly looks like there was what we have going on now, going to a much higher degree, as well as the fact that there's so many less people out there. There may be many waves of quote unquote plagues upon the land that are still to come. So again, do what you can for yourself, your loved ones, and your family. Try to maintain your humanity and your freedom as much as you can. But for each their own. There will be those that say, just go ahead and hook me up to the Borg, because I just can't live without the tech. So that's going to be for them. And again, this is a longer process than you might think. Because, again, going out, 30 plus years from now, it's still in a transitional phase. It feels like it's going to be a transitional phase for generations. So it's not like everything's going to come to an end and it's just done. There's long periods of time where we go through these rebuilding processes. And again, just when we go back to look at these photos, here we are today, and there's people living like this. There will be remnants of people with technology. There will be, ships coming and going, and people will be looking up and saying, "Who's that, Daddy?" I don't know. It's just one of those gods, one of those star beings, one of those, or maybe those that don't understand the bigger picture. That's who that is. Son or daughter. As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.